Hello and welcome to episode 2 of this series. Okay, same as last time, we're going to click off this menu and we're going to go into our default scene. Just a quick recap. To move around, we're going to use our mouse wheel forwards and backwards. We're going to click and hold mouse wheel to rotate around, and we're going to shift click mouse to pan around. Today I want to focus on editing modes. So we're going to left click or right click on your cube, and we're going to press numpad 0 or numpad delete, sorry, your period key. You're going to zoom on your cube, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. On the top left, you'll see object modes. There's a bunch of object modes, and I'll explain them as we go through. So in your object mode, this is your object. You cannot edit its vertices, you cannot change the geometry. This is the object as a whole. Now, to give you more information, if you press the T button, you can minimize and bring up this menu. And for the opposite side, you can press N to bring up this view. So I'm just going to use this part over here as reference in terms of the location, rotation, and scale of this object. So if I left click on this object and I press R, which is our rotation key, I'm going to rotate the object, and you can see the rotation change live. And we can left click to apply the rotation, and this will be applied to our object. To undo, you can press Ctrl Z. Blender has a very nice feature, as does most modeling softwares. If I rotate, I can limit it to one of these axes. So we have our Y axis, our X axis, and our Z axis. Sometimes Y is upwards, but in Blender, Z is upwards. So if I press R, I can limit it to an axis by pressing, for example, Z, and it will rotate around the Z axis. Press X, same on the X, and Y. Do it on the Y as well. The nice feature is you can enter a value which is in degrees. So if I were to say rotate it Z 45, I can rotate it exactly 45 degrees. And you can see it displayed over here. You can also rotate the object by physically dragging the value here, or typing in a value. Let's say 180, maybe 0, and it will go and adjust the value for you. Same with the scale. I can adjust the scale over here, can adjust the location. You can do it all from this window. So let's go into our editing modes with that in mind. So for example, if I scale this cube in object mode by the half, 0.5, it'll be half the size, as you can see here. But the cube's also going to be smaller. This is not what you want. You want the scale to stay 1. As soon as this scale changes in the object view, you're going to get errors and bugs later on. So you never want to scale or change the position of your origin unless you need to change it for modeling. So by default, you want to keep it in the center of your scene while modeling, and then from there on, you can move it around your scene. So I'm going to scale this back to 2. So the scale is 1. Now we're going to go into our first mode, which is edit mode. And immediately you'll see vertices. So I'm going to press A to select all, or you can double press A to deselect all. If double press A does not work, you can press Alt A. That also deselects everything. So A to select everything, Alt A to deselect. You can click and drag to select the vertices. You can shift click vertices. You can control click vertices. You can alt click vertices. There are a number of ways to select vertices, but we'll get into that a bit later. Now that we're in edit mode, I want to start with something very basic. All the vertices that you can visibly see, you can select. So I can see these 7 vertices, but I can't see this back vertice from that point of view, so I can't select it. But let's say you want to select it. You can either rotate it around and then do another selection and select it. Now I have all the vertices selected. Or you can go into transparent mode. Over here is your different viewing modes. You have your shading view. Okay, so you have your studio lighting, matte cap, flat shading. You can apply different matte caps, which allows the object to have different properties in terms of the lighting of the world. You can change that back to the default. Studio lighting. But if you change it to wireframe, you can see through the object, which allows me to select that point because this is now transparent. The same would be said if I duplicated this shape. I go back to our shaded view and I select everything that I want to see. I will not be able to select any of these points. But if I do the same thing while in wireframe view, I can select those points. A shortcut that I use, if you press Z, you can switch between wireframe, solid, your rendering view, and your material preview. By default, Blender's is in solid view. Okay, now, as you thought, most likely, I can select a vertice and move it. If I press T, I bring up this toolbar. I can click on the move tool and I can select this vertice and move it up and down. I can rotate this vertice. For example, let's select two of them. I can rotate them in certain axes or just as a whole. You can also do this by pressing R. So the shortcuts for the following is G to move, R to rotate, and S to scale. Much as you would have thought. G to grab, R to rotate, and S to scale. Okay. Let's say you rotate something and you're happy with it. You left click to apply. Or let's say you're busy with something and you say you don't like this. You can either right click or press escape to cancel this action. You have different modes while modeling. You have vertex mode, which allows you to select individual vertices. And you can see the different modes up here next to your edit mode. Then you have X-Led mode, which allows you to select certain edges. And you have face select mode, which allows you to select faces. Between these three modes and different modeling techniques, you can create anything you want inside of 3D. There's endless possibilities. So for example, let's take this cube and turn it into a rough chair. Nice tool to use is an edge loop tool. When you have an object, you can be in any one of these views, but it will take you to edge view by default. If you hover over the object and press Ctrl R, you'll see this floating line. This line will be generated between any two vertices and will follow the active quads. So for example, this is a square, so the quads all flow into each other. If I left click, it's going to apply it to this one, and then I can shift it to the left or to the right. But if I want it in the center, I can just right click and it will stay like that. So I'm going to add another one, Control R, and add an edge loop over here as well. And I'm going to right click to leave it in the middle. Another cool tool to use is Control B. If I press Control B, I'm going to bevel this. So I'm going to split it into multiples. And if I mouse wheel up and down, I can either add or decrease the amount of edges. So let's add another edge loop, Control R. This time I'm going to drag it up. And I'm happy with that. I'm going to Alt select this edge, which is going to select this entire edge loop. Or I can press Shift and individually select the edges if I would like to. I'm going to take both of the edges and bevel them by pressing Control B. Okay. I don't know if you can see what I'm going for, but it's getting there. Another tool that we use while modeling is extrusions. So I'm going to go to face select mode. Another shortcut for these modes is on your keyboard is number 1, number 2, and number 3. Okay, I'm going to go to the front view. I'm going to take the back edge, shift select them, and I'm going to press E to extrude. I'm going to do it by 1 integration. 2. Okay, there we have the back of our chair. The reason I add the edge loops was to create these feet. So I'm going to go into face select mode by pressing 3. I'm going to select these faces on the sides and at the bottom. I'm going to press X to delete, or you can press the delete button. And it's going to ask you what do you want to delete. So if you select vertices, it's going to include the vertex and delete that vertex as well. Same with the edges, or do you just want to delete the faces? I just want to delete the faces. So I'm going to show you what happens if I select vertices. It's going to delete this vertex that I wanted to keep. So we're going to do that, X, but only faces. Now it keeps that geometry, but it removes the unnecessary geometry. Okay, so now we're going to shift select this, and while this is why you added the F2 modifier. So if I press F, it's going to join those two, and I'm going to shift select these two, press F, and now we have a little bit of a base. I'm going to press Control R to get another loop, and right click to put it in the center. I'm going to press Control, I'm going to press 7, go into wireframe, Control B to bevel, and I'm going to line it up more or less the same. You can be exact, but it's not necessary for this demonstration. I'm going to fuse these two by pressing F. I'm going to fuse this face by pressing F. Excuse me. Oh, good day to be alive. Okay, now if I select these two, I can just press F, press F, press F, press F, and it automatically fills in the rest for me. Press F, press F, press F, which is very, very nice. Press F, press F. And there we have a very basic chair. So I'm going to go into edit mode by pressing tab, or selecting between the modes here, object mode and edit mode. I'm going to select everything by pressing A. I'm going to press G, and I'm going to press Z, and I'm going to press 1. So it is on the bottom floor. Now how did I know how to press 1? One of these grids is 1 blender unit. A tiny one is 0.1 blender units. For example, if I press G 0.1 Z, it will move it 0.1 blender units upwards. You can preset your blender units underneath units, and you can set them to meters or millimeters, whatever you'd like, inches if you want imperial, but we use metric and I prefer meters. Well, there you have a basic, very basic chair. If you would like to add more detail, you can, but that is how fast you can edit something, and you can obviously stylize and adjust it furthermore. So just a quick recap. If you press top left, you have your object mode, you have your object scale, which stays 1 by all means if possible, and you would like to keep your rotation and your location 0 as well. After you've done modeling, you can, for example, scale, don't worry about the setting, you can scale this, let's say, twice as large, but when I go back to my object view, the object scale stays the same. So try and scale and move your object in edit mode and not in your object mode. But there we have it. That's episode 1. We created a quick little chair, and I'll go into more details in the next episode. Thank you for watching.